So, hey. As always, this one is about a dream. And this dream specifically, or this poem specifically, I'm not entirely sure if it's really a poem as much as it is just or not even a declaration, just a remembering or an archive. And I am intentionally keeping it away from any other platform and putting it on the platform that it is least likely to reach the person who inspired this and who I appreciate dearly and want to thank. Why would somebody do that? I'm not sure actually. I do fear people seeing the stuff that I write would that may or may not have been inspired by them, and it scares me. So this one, apart from my own ramblings, is called "A Hill with Two Deaths" or "A Hill with Two Deaths." The hill was ordinary, which is how miracles hide. Grass like a sentence no one questions, blankets breathing under picnic weight, music wandering without a destination, hands touching fruit, shoulders sunlight. Bliss was not an event, it was an atmosphere. Every form of pleasure moved there. Laughter with open throat, hips remembering a language older than bones, desire without urgency, peace without explanation. At the top of the hill, everything was woven, not stitched, woven. Threads of thrill, threads of safety, threads of bodies believing they were allowed to be bodies. My mother was there, which meant the world was anchored. And somewhere between the dancers, Aphrodite moved. Not myth, not symbol, like actually Aphrodite, just a woman shaped gravity turning beauty into weather. No one was surprised beauty was normal there. At the bottom of the hill, a gathering. Not celebration, not fear, something waiting. He stood there, Nevaeh's father, a man I have never met except in the architecture of her light. Strange how the soul recognizes the parents of the people who save it. Side note, because she was the one who loosened the knot between fate and choice, who showed me that freedom is not escape, but alignment. She did not give me a path, she gave my spirit the courage to understand that the path had always been mine, as well as the one above and around and abound. Some people do not rescue you from your life, they return your life to you. That's what she did. Okay, back to Nevaeh's father. He was not dramatic, no thunder voice, no prophet posture, just presence. Presence. Watching. Then he was beside me, not climbing, not arriving, just warped beside me, as if he had always been there, and I had just now learned how to see. Come with me. Simple. No threat, no urgency. I refused. Naturally, top of the hill is great because the top of the hill was beautiful, because safety looks like obedience to comfort, because joy feels like proof. I'm retelling this story retroactively, therefore, in retrospect, you're hearing my present past thoughts as opposed to my present thoughts, because when I was at the top of the hill, I wasn't thinking because safety looks like obedience to comfort, because joy feels like proof, because that had not even given itself the opportunity to manifest itself or bring itself to fruition. So let me continue before I get myself off topic. He did not argue, Nevaeh's father. He asked me to trust God. The words did not land because the top and the bottom looked the same. That is the first terror of the dream, when danger and paradise share a horizon. Then judgment arrived without announcement. The hill began to move, but the movement did not touch my body. The earth trembled, but sensation refused to translate. It was weird. People screamed. I thought earthquake because the mind searches for familiar disasters when the unfamiliar begins to eat the world. Then slaughter. Sudden, bright, impossible. Bodies breaking like the opening of a film. American Assassin, the beach scene, the opening scene, terrifying. That forgot it was fiction. Violence did not feel symbolic. It was very literal and it was specific. It was here. There is a sound a crowd makes when the future is canceled. I heard it. The hill changed. What had been gentle became steep. What had been space became pressure. The crowd pushed upward toward the place that was no longer safe because instinct moves toward height even when height becomes a trap. He was still there, Nevaeh's father, of course. He said, I cannot pull you down. That is the second terror. Salvation does not drag, freedom does not drag, freedom and faith does not kidnap. Choice is heavier than rescue. Choice is heavier than rescue. He said, trust God, you have to decide. I looked back. The bottom of the hill had disappeared. Water, not a lake, not a river. Movement, current, like a mouth, water. There are waters the body recognizes as death without needing instruction, the kind that does not negotiate, not negligible, the kind that erases names. And somehow I knew death above, death below. My mother still on the hill, top of the hill, violence moving through the air, beauty still dancing in fragments, Aphrodite still turning somewhere as if beauty refuses to stop even during extinction. Two deaths: comfort, death; surrender, death; safety, death; faith, death. Then the world warped. It felt like breaking the surface of something, like I had been inside a bubble that called itself reality. Have you ever watched an Olympic swimmer coming up for air in slow motion? Kind of like that bubble breaking. Like breath was happening somewhere else and I had just realized I was underwater, even before I had touched the water. One look at my mother, the look children give when they know love cannot follow into certain decisions. Then movement, not walking, not running, falling forward, down, down, spinning, down, 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 the hill rushing past like memory, losing detail. The top shrinking, the music thinning, the color draining. There is a speed the soul reaches when the decision has already been made somewhere deeper than fear. Then water, impact without sound, cold without temperature, current without direction. The kind of force that removes the idea that you are in control of your own body. The kind of movement that decides for you. And still, we survived. Despite what I said earlier about some bodies recognizing water as death, all of us, not floating, not rescued, survived. This is where the poem ends when I had written it, when I wrote it. This is where reality begins, where I picked it up recently. Which is the strangest mercy? The dream was not about choosing life. It was about choosing the death that becomes transformation. Because the hill was not paradise. It was comfort mistaken for safety. Because the water was not destruction. It was surrender mistaken for ending. Because trust does not look like peace. Trust looks like leaving the place where beauty sometimes feels guaranteed. Trust looks like walking away from the version of yourself that believes control is protection. Trust looks like choosing the unknown when the known begins to bleed. Nevaeh's father did not save me. He did something harder. He refused to remove the decision. He put it in my hands. That is what guidance looks like when it respects the soul. When I woke, the hill was still inside me, two deaths still inside me, and the quiet knowing sometimes survival comes from walking directly into the current you were taught to fear. Because some waters do not kill. They dissolve the version of you that was standing still at the top of a beautiful hill that was already ending. I'm definitely sending this to Nisi. Thank you very much. I've never had a dream interpretation put up here like this, and I know no one, like, a few people see this, and for one person I'm truly grateful. It means everything. But something like this is it's a lot. So thank you to Nevaeh's father, even though we don't know each other and he'll never know me. Thank you to Nevaeh. Thank you to the siren. Thank you to everyone who's been so patient and understanding with me on my journey. Which, again, this does not mean that this sounds stupid, but it does not mean that I'm done backtracking or falling or being human. I'm still gonna have my moments, but this dream stuck with me. I have this weird relationship with dreams and God. I've always prayed for these not near death experiences, because that's not that's a weird thing to pray for, but these testimonies. I remember watching Rod Pickens or Rod Sith or Sith Rod Sid Roth and his supernatural experiences, and these people who would just, or Mario and his transformation, or Nabil, all of these people. I recall watching and seeing, or like Ernest Sneed and his ability to recount testimonies of his own and others, and saying, God, what I personally would like to experience that. And then whenever I've had three dreams in particular, and they all end at very exact moments. The first one was I was in, this wasn't where this is supposed to go. Um, I was in my body, and I recognized that I didn't actually know I was in my body. I didn't know I was sleeping. And then I remember there being a countdown, and everyone was scrambling, 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 scrambling. This is the second dream. I do not remember the first. And as we were scrambling, we had understood the idea that hell was this like fiery place, which hell is probably going to be worse. If hell is really just your memories recounted over life to show you everything you did wrong and every reason why you did what you did, that sounds like hell. Weeping and gnashing of teeth. I would weep and gnash my teeth if I saw the memory of anything I've done in this life. Honestly, I don't want to see a projector of me. If an afterlife, an eternity of dealing with me? Oh no. Oh no, there's no amount of physical torture that can compare to the emotional wreck that would leave me in. But yeah, my simple mind at the time thought hell was this literal place of hellfire. So I remember there was this tube that was pushing people up or putting people down. So I'm not sure where the one that went up went, but I'm sure you can take a guess. And there was one that went down, and there was fire all surrounding it. So all I remember was like very loud countdown. It said 3, 2, 1, and then after that the dream ended. But I haven't forgotten how paralyzed with fear I was. It was just utter paralysis. I was rendered unable to even use any of my body. But my dream allowed me to experience that before I woke up. So I remember that fear. And then with this dream specifically, it came at a really interesting time. Oh, I remember the first dream. The usual persecution, people were being slaughtered, and I didn't recognize I was in a dream, which usually is something you do in a dream. The guard was like, do you believe in so on and so forth? And I was like, no. And then the dream ended immediately, and I was like, oh no. Because I've been talking I was very critical of my friends who weren't believing or faith-based. And this was when I was very fundamentalist, new in my faith. Everybody needs to do this. Everybody needs to be one way. And I was so passionate. I was like, I have the key to heaven. Why don't you want it? Which wasn't true and still isn't true. There's a lot of this world. And I was so critical of people. And then I got this dream, and it was this guard. He's like, do you believe in God? He had this knife, big sword. I said, no. And then the dream ended, and I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed. I felt the disappointment for myself that I gave onto others. And after that, I really calmed down. And then, yeah. But the third dream, this water dream in particular is so weird, because I won't forget the feeling of being in that water and recognizing that we had survived, and that this extremely deep tsunami flood like water, we were now standing in it. I don't know if we were on it or in it, or just able to remain afloat because of whatever, and looking up and not knowing what to think. And those waters and that dream has stayed with me permanently. They have not left me. So yeah. Yep. The only reason I said I was going to send this to Nisi is because he's dealt with me in so many of my faithlessness and my foolishness, and he's seen so many messages like, all of this stuff that you told me about God and all this realness and this goodness in your life that he's been doing, or that God's been doing, not real, fake, screwed up. And I have every right to think that, right? I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't disagree with me if they just looked at the world or looked at their self or their circumstances. But he's too far along in his faith to entertain me, and he would just kind of roll his eyes and just it was so funny. But yeah, that is my dream made into poetry, and then a protracted post-amble. So there we go. Adios.